Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight, and we're continuing with a coverage on United States elections and the impact of the outcome, which is official, that America has given a decisive mandate to Donald Trump, who is returning as president once again. Trump managed to win 4 out of the 7 swing states of North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. As per reports, in fact, Trump crossed the 270 mark, while Harris got 224 seats. Let's try and understand the impact of a Donald Trump presidency comeback, because he stated that it is a historic realignment that has happened. And of course, we've seen global leaders as well react to a comeback of Donald Trump. And joining us to discuss this story further is Ms. Veena Sikri, the former Indian High Commissioner to India and to Bangladesh, Karan Verma, author and political analyst, Raymond Vickery, former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Thank you very much, ma'am and gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Let me come to you first, Ms. Sikri. Trump has gone from being the first president ever to be impeached, the first former president convicted of felonies, to now perceivably an embodiment of unbreakable tenacity and unshakable grit. At what point did the game really change for him, and which specific moments in this long-drawn election campaign decided that it was indeed going to be a Donald Trump victory?
Well, it has been a long-drawn campaign, and when former President Trump announced his decision to put in his candidature for this time, it was not even received very widely in the US. I was told that in the New York Post, it figured on page 26 when he first announced it. So obviously, it has been a very major route back. But I think one has to ultimately agree that it's the people of the United States who voted for him. And in each of the categories that the election data has been broken down into, whether it's the African American category or the women category or the Latinos category, the Democratic Party has secured a lower percentage of the vote than President Biden did in 2020. And that lower percentage has translated into an additional percentage for President Trump. So obviously, his manifesto, what he has promised to the people of America, this has had some resonance with all segments of the community in America. And I'm sure that, these 2 attempts on his life had something to do with it. His programs had something. A lot of issues have come into it. What are these 2 programs, the 2 major aspects of his manifesto? I think the first is that he'll end the wars, the Ukraine conflict and the conflict in Israel. These are the biggest promise that he has made to the people of America. So I think his first priority would certainly be to see how this is to be ended. Second priority is about the economy. And here you have, how will he bring investment back to America? American investments have left and gone to China in a large way, bringing them back to America, increasing jobs, bringing down inflation. This is a big, big promise that he has made to the people of America. And certainly he will focus on this aspect as well. I think as far as India is concerned, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump had an excellent rapport and understanding during the first term from 2016 to 2020. And it had resulted in very positive growth and development of the Indo-US friendship and understanding in a wide number of areas, including the defense sector, including investments, including transfer of technologies, including the whole Quad issue that has now developed into such a major focus on maritime security. So all these issues are very important for us. But of course, we have to see how it will now be pan out with America. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ma'am, thank you for your initial comments. Let me come to you, Karan Verma. You want to weigh in on this, on which specific moments really in this long-drawn campaign, really decided the game for Donald Trump, even though we've seen Kamala Harris also maintaining quite a lead. And in fact, the game completely changed when Kamala Harris got into the race. But with Donald Trump, it's also been, a lot about men supporting him, a lot about illegal immigration, and of course, that assassination attempt.
So first of all, at the outset, let me just say that this is the single greatest political comeback in the history that we've ever witnessed. I mean, here is a man who survived 2 assassination attempts.
Why would you say that?
I'm just building onto that. Just let me speak, please. Here is a man who had two impeachments, a rank outsider who won against all odds in 2016, impeached twice, completely targeted by the justice system, thrown out of, disgraced from all social media platforms, then two assassination attempts, his businesses targeted, and he still stands up and rises like a phoenix from the ashes and wins the presidency. Now, this is what you call an epic comeback. You know, this is what is a war cry by the forgotten men and women against the elites. Donald Trump was very clear in his messaging. This illegal immigration cannot go on. He was very clear that the deep state is not going to decide the future of every forgotten man and woman, whether it's the steel worker in Wisconsin, in Michigan, the automobile worker. He stood for the common working class. And that is the message which resonated. You know, a lot of time these pollsters, they never had their ears to the ground. They always thought that those who are sitting in DC, they'll decide how things work, who's going to win, who's going to be ahead. But Donald Trump is the one who had his ears to the ground, and which is why what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. He just kept coming at them. Right after the midterm, when he announced his campaign, he was way behind in the polls, even in the primaries initially. Ron DeSantis was the one who was supposed to be the next contender from the Republican Party.
Right.
But he kept on persisting with his message. And by the end of the day, it was his message of against wokeism, the wokeism that had gripped America, the liberalism, the pseudo-liberalism, I would say, which had defined their policies. I think it was a war cry against that, and he prevailed.
Okay, so you're stating that it's a war cry against, all of those ideology, and hence Trump has prevailed. Mr. Vickery, let me come to you, and thanks very much for patiently waiting. What's then next for Democrats? Are they going to introspect further? Are they going to surrender? And which are the possible leaders that you see coming out of the Democratic Party in the years to come?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think it is a time for introspection. I mean, the good news is that we had full and fair and free elections, and there's very little protest going on about any irregularities. In Virginia, where I am right now, we elected our first Indian American member of Congress, Suhas Subramaniam. And Virginia went to Democratic, as a number of other states did. I think that we're going to have to get our arms around how we can be able to sustain democracy. Democracy is not just an election. It's all of the things that go with it, the rule of law, the protection of human rights, the ability for people to have freedom in their own individual lives. We in the Democratic Party, I think, missed the boat on immigration. And we really did fail to get across the fact that the economy under Joe Biden was remarkably good. Inflation was what people saw at the grocery store and at the fuel pump, and that wiped out really everything else. So we got to come back on the economic approach.
Absolutely, and those are going to be a very critical and crucial areas for Donald Trump. Let me come to you. Ma'am, how do you think India's engagement is going to evolve with the United States under a second Trump presidency that we're going to be seeing now? And what will be India's stance to a Trump 2.0? Because remember, today's India is not really the India of 2016. Today, everybody wants to do business with India, and of course, sees India as a leader of the global South, which is of course, growing its relationships with countries across the world.
Yes, I think that this is a great moment to develop the relationship between India and USA. And India is certainly looking forward to the 4 years with President Trump in charge, because he has had a very close interaction, not only with the Indian leadership, Prime Minister Modi, during 2016-20, but also he has looked at the points of convergence between India and USA. And I think here, China angle is certainly going to be a very important one because it is President Trump who first actually really called out China. I mean, from a point where, everybody in America had been thinking that if we push investments into China, if we give them prosperity, democracy will follow, really calling out that very, very, I think, incorrect assessment that had been made. I think this is what President Trump had done. And he called out the first rounds of tariffs against China, denying them technology, denying them participation in 5G and so on and all that. And I think that has now been carried forward in part by President Biden, but not enough. And President Biden had also sought to have a kind of a rapprochement with China. But I think now, I think it will be entirely this. And where does India fit into it is very important for us to study and to examine and to work out with President Trump's administration, because there are a number of areas. I think the ICT, the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies, is very vital for us. Those technologies we're looking at in a big way. The Quad is very important for us, carrying that forward on maritime security. And I think the role of South Asia and India as positioning itself as leader of the global South after the last G20 summit, which we had. We were the chairman of. I think it's very important moments of for India and USA to work together with the global South can be a golden opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see how this relationship really develops with definitely an eye on China. And I'll come to you, Mr. Vickery, in just a short while from now on the China factor. But let me come to you, Karan Verma. Lots of chatter around that Trump is friends with the Prime Minister. He also stated that, he is a good friend and, of course, he's an absolute killer. We've seen celebrations also happening right here in India. Why do you think that is the case?
So, yeah, you're right. They do enjoy a rapport. And also, I think Trump was very clear and explicit in calling out Pakistan and cutting their military aid and speaking it out clearly that they failed in their efforts to curb terrorism. And he's also someone who is not going to lecture India on democracy or human rights, and all these pontifications are not going to happen when he's in charge. Look, he's a man of peace. I've always believed that. He believes in peace through strength. Russia did not invade Ukraine or anyone under the Trump regime. And I think India buying oil from Russia, which is, looked at with a jaundiced eye by the West, that's also going to stop. Plus, we are also going to not be lectured about, what's happening in Kashmir or what's happening elsewhere, because Kamala Harris and Ilhan Omar and this entire cabal, they were very quick in commenting when Article 370 was removed. So I don't see Trump interfering or meddling in any internal affairs. He's fond of India and he believes that India has a role to play in the future. We can't forget the defense deals where we had in Quad, where he wanted to counter China. So I think our relation in general, the world relations are going to improve. He also got the Arabs, by the way, to recognize Israel, and the Abrahamic Accords were signed. So I believe that in general, there is going to be world peace under Donald Trump. He also helped in obliterating ISIS. He was one of the first ones to call out radical Islamic terrorism that was happening there. So I believe that in general, we are going to have peace and India-America relationships are going to improve. He is not going to be, this is a candidate who defeated the deep state. So if there are efforts by the deep state to stage coups or to foment tensions in different regions, I think that's going to stop. Whether it's in Bangladesh, where he was quick to call out that, Hindus have been killed in Bangladesh and this genocide must stop. He's the first president who called that out. So I think in all, he's someone who's been sympathetic to the Indian cause. Yes, he's going to be a little tough on trade. We can see that coming, but that's okay. I think we can manage that well. Moreover, it's against something that was gripping the world, the wokeism, the malaise of wokeism. I think that is going to end. Men participating in women's sports and this entire madness that had wreaked havoc in the last couple of years, I think that's also going to stop.
Yes, but that was resonating with one side of the population, which is why we've seen the kind of traction that Kamala Harris's campaign has also gotten, Karan Verma. But let me come to you, Mr. Vickery. Your point about China and, of course, the reciprocal tariffs and, Trump has at one point in time, he said in respect of de-dollarization and tariffs that he will impose 100% tariffs on China. Understanding how he's been very vociferous so far as, slapping tariffs on countries is concerned, how real is the danger of a global tariff war, because there is going to be that kind of retaliation from these countries, and of course he is a protectionist, he is America first, so he is going to be that much more aggressive this time, and protectionist measures are not really good for the global economy.
Well, I couldn't agree more. As a former Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Trade Development, I'm appalled at the international economic program that was put forward by Trump during the campaign. It's not just trying to bring China to heel through tariffs. He's said and committed to a 10 to 20% tariff on everybody, friend and foe alike, and that includes India. The idea that you can build prosperity internationally, either for India or for the U.S., by creating an economic fortress America, which has been the way in which he has been going forward, reinvoking the disastrous experience of the United States in 1930s with high tariffs, which contributed to the Depression, is completely appalling. And I would point out that the anti-immigration program of Trump does not just stop with illegal immigrants. His advisors want to cut down on immigration across the board. That means for Indians, it's going to be harder to get visas. I think that the whole H-1B visa program will become much more difficult for Indians to be able to participate in the economy here. So I think that on the economic side, there are real problems. And I would point out that you can't just wall off and say, well, that's economics. On geopolitical stuff, we're all on the same page. The fact is, there is only one reality, and that includes economics and politics together. They influence each other. And rather than just taking a sledgehammer and everybody going into its own corner and saying, we'll have America first, India first, and not considering the broader implications is difficult.
Right, Mr. Vickery. One last question, Karan Verma. We're completely out of time, so if you could quickly answer that. On the point of democracy, this has been a big plan that's been floated from both sides. Both sides have rallied behind it. If you speak of Republicans, well, Donald Trump's billionaire friend and supporter Elon Musk also tweeted saying that President Trump must win to preserve the Constitution. We've also seen the kind of comments that have been made by Kamala Harris and, of course, other Democrats. But was democracy a plank at all that worked this election?
So, the biggest joke on democracy was that Kamala Harris was hoisted as the candidate, even though she did not win the primaries. All she got was 1% vote the last time she contested in 2020. So that was the cruel joke on democracy. Them running on the platform of democracy was irony dying 1,000 deaths. And that is where they got the entire messaging wrong. When Elon Musk says democracy is under threat, he refers to the illegal immigrants which are now being settled in the battleground states. And very soon, by giving them voting rights, it'll all turn blue. So that was the risk that they were staring in the face. And that is what he called out. So that was a justified plan. But for Kamala Harris to talk about democracy when she was not even elected, but just handpicked to be the nominee, I think that's where the people saw through the hypocrisy.
Right, but I do hope that viewers also see, Karan Verma, that it was Donald Trump supporters who allegedly unleashed violence in 2020. And, they were in denial after 2020 election results came out. Thank you very much, ma'am and gentlemen, for joining us this evening on ET Now. Really appreciate you taking the time out and speaking with us. And ladies and gentlemen, it's goodbye from us as well. It's time to close the show. Thank you very much for staying with us right here on India Tonight.